Hi, my dog's on my lap. Welcome to my channel, Fly. Please take a moment to like and maybe even subscribe because my channel is now stories of Hollywood. Stories of Hollywood deaths and murders. And it's very interesting. But tonight, I'm changing it up. It is now 5 minutes into Halloween. So I thought I would tell the story of the Candyman. The man who ruined Halloween. It all started in 1974. Little boy Timmy, his sister Elizabeth, could not wait to go out trick-or-treating. But they were a tad young to go out by themselves, so they begged their father, "Please, Daddy, take us out trick-or-treating." And he said, "Of course." So they met up with a neighbor and their 2 children, and they went trick-or-treating. They went from house to house and street to street, laughing and running and just having the most wonderful time. Timmy was only 8, and I'm going to use notes only because I'm very old, so it's a little difficult. I believe that Elizabeth was 5, so obviously not old enough to go out on their own. So finally, they went to a house that no one answered. And they were so disappointed. And so Timmy's father said, "Well, I'll wait a minute. You go ahead to the next house." So the neighbor took the 4 children to the next house. and Timmy's father caught up with them. And in his hand, he had 5 pixie sticks. He said that after they had left, the man opened the door, and he said he was looking, he was waiting for candy for his children. And the man said, "Oh, I have these 5 pixie sticks left." So Timmy's stepfather gave 1 to Elizabeth and 1 to Timothy, 1 to the other man's daughter, and 1 to the other man's son. And he also gave 1 to a boy who he knew from church. Because Timmy's father was very involved in church. He was actually the deacon, and I have to see where it was, of the, I don't know what the church was called. He was a deacon, he was in the choir, and he was in charge of the bus program at the church. So he was really involved with his church. And also, he was an optician. And so he knew quite a few of the neighbors as he passed by, and knew this boy who also sang on the choir. So it finally got to a point where Elizabeth especially started getting tired. And they all went home and said their goodbyes, and the kids, as usual, came in and rattled on to their mom about how much fun they had and all the costumes they'd seen. And so they were getting ready for bed, and Timmy asked his father if he could have 1 more piece of candy. Because of course, he snuck a few on the way. And his father said, "Of course, you can have 1 more piece of candy." So Timmy said, "Oh, Dad, can I have my pixie stick? I love them." And his father was, of course, you can have your pixie stick. So, if you don't know, pixie sticks are made of paper. And, excuse me, when he bit down on it, he got it wet. And if it gets wet, the powdered sugar won't come out. So he asked his dad to help him, and his dad ripped off the top for him, like you're supposed to. And Timmy took the whole pixie stick right down. And he made a face, and his dad didn't understand. And he said, Dad, this is bitter. He said, pixie sticks aren't supposed to be bitter. So his father quickly went and got him a cup of Kool-Aid to wash it down, and it would have a similar taste to the pixie sticks, so it would get rid of the bitter taste. So he puts Timmy to bed, and very shortly after, he hears Timmy crying and calling. Timmy's parents run up to his room. He's vomiting. Soon he starts convulsing on the floor. They pick him up. They talk to him. They're trying to find out what's the matter. And he goes limp in his father's arms. They're insane. They wrap him up and grab Elizabeth and run to the hospital. And he died before he even got to the hospital. And no one knew what happened, and it was so tragic. And he, of course, was sent to the coroner. And the coroner did an entire exam and found nothing wrong with his heart or anything like that. But then he found that smell of almonds. And he took a sample of his blood. And what he found was potassium cyanide. Potassium cyanide. What had he eaten all night long? Candy. Where had he gotten this potassium cyanide from? What house? His his parents went insane. They called the neighbor that they had gone out trick-or-treating with. Where did we go? Which house did we get which candy at? And no one remembers where they go. Children just running up and down the sidewalk and up and down the steps. So they took Timmy's bag and they tested all the candy. And there was no potassium cyanide. Where did he get this? Then they took Elizabeth's bag. They tested it. Her pixie stick was full of potassium cyanide. So quickly, they went to the neighbor and his 2 children and got their pixie sticks. And the neighbor remembered that another pixie stick had been given to the boy from the choir. So they went quickly and gathered that pixie stick. And thankfully, no one else had eaten it, had eaten theirs. And no one knew what had happened, where this pixie stick had come from. They couldn't remember the home where they had gotten it from. And they checked all the neighbors on the street. What were you giving out? What were you doing? This is one of my special kitties back here. That's Abigail. And, excuse me, they had an entire neighborhood out looking for who was giving out the pixie sticks. And they found it very odd that none of the other children had pixie sticks in their bags. And none had remembered getting any, and none had remembered eating any. So, again, I must look at my notes because I am just desperately old. And if I don't read it, it would just not even make sense. I hope it's making sense now. Being 100 to 200 years old, you cannot keep everything straight. There's just too much. It's like my mother used to say, my brain just hits full. So let me see. I have to look at this page, I believe. And, so, they, just had to do a lot of investigation. And the only thing they could think of was that he had to have been given it at home. Because his father was the only other one who had seen the pixie sticks. And they were sure that he would have remembered what house the candy came from that had killed his son. And they questioned him, and they found out that yes, his father had poisoned him for his life insurance. His father is named Ronald Clark O'Brien. He was born, ironically, in the Halloween month in 1944. And he was married to Diane. And she was a stay-at-home mom and thought she had the world. Her husband was an optician, a deacon at the church. She had 2 beautiful children who were very well behaved. They did good in school, and they were very polite and good children. And now she only had one. And then she had to go and watch her husband, who she loved, stand trial for the death of their son and the attempted murder of their daughter. And indeed, he was charged with those 5 counts. And he was convicted of murder in the 1st degree and 4 counts of attempted murder. And this happened in 1974, that he was murdered. And in 1984, at the age of 39, Ronald Clark O'Brien was put to death for being the Candy Man, for killing his son, for attempting to kill his daughter and 3 other children. And a family was shattered by the man who ruined Halloween. So be good, my little goblins. And remember the little kitties at night. And remember to have your parents check your candy. Maybe both should check it. Please like my channel if you liked it. If you didn't like it, give it a thumbs down, but give it a chance. If you want to hear more stories of Hollywood and the deaths and the tragedies, subscribe. Leave a comment. But by all means, take care, you be well, and you have a happy Halloween.